Hi, hello, how are you, everyone? Welcome to FlashBack with Wes Britton, where we bring you entertaining interviews that bring you from the past into the future. With names that you recognize, films that you know and love, and music that will take you back to your memories. Join me and my co-host Karina Cantus every Friday at noon EST, only on the Artist First Radio Network.
Hi everyone, Wes Britton here. And while it isn't Creedence Clearwater Revival, two of the gents who are part of that band are certainly what you just heard. Stu Cook, bass player for CCR, the original and the new one, and drummer, our next guest in fact, Doug Cosmo Clifford, are performing in Creedence Clearwater Revisited. We're going to get into what Creedence Clearwater Revisited is all about. Well, I guess you want to go for Doug or Cosmo? Which you prefer?
Doug or Cosmo. How's that?
All right.
Your choice.
Okay. Maybe I'll go back and forth just to confuse the audience.
That confused me too, but that's okay. I've been confused for 67 years. So
67 years, hard to believe. Well, let's go way back in time, because the first question I wanted to know was, how did you get interested in the drums? What was it that attracted you to that instrument and got you banging away?
Well, I was definitely attracted to rock and roll music. In fact, I've been buying records. I had a record collection. I started doing that when I was 9 years old, back in 1953, and I really wanted to be involved in it in some way, and didn't really know exactly what instrument I was going to play. And I saw a television special that had the great Gene Krupa, of course, the big drummer. Oh, he was awesome. He did so much for the drummers in the world. Usually the drums were in the back, and they weren't even lit, and they told you to play it very, very, very safe, and don't get too loud, and no solos and so forth. But he was a sort of a handsome movie star type guy, and he changed that whole dynamic by playing great solos and having the great look, and being a personality that was the same as perhaps the lead singer in a band, etc. But he changed the whole dynamic. I saw a TV special with him playing in an outfield full of drums. The band was playing in the background, and he just walked through playing and would sit down once in a while and do a little solo and move through the outfield. So I said, that's what I want to do, but I want to play rock and roll and not jazz.
What kind of set did you get? Because back in those days, I guess it was Ludwig and Slingerland that were the kings.
Yeah, that was the two, really. Well, my set was a piecemeal set. I saved my allowance, and I did lawn jobs and things like that for money, and Christmas presents, birthday presents. I said, just give me money, because I was going to buy another piece of equipment. I started out with a snare drum and a marching bass drum, which was really kind of an oddball situation, but somebody gave it to me, so I wasn't going to turn it down. And I balanced the snare drum on a flower pot stand that my mom didn't use anymore, and it was pretty interesting, and that's how it all started. And eventually I was able to get a whole set of Slingerlands. I wanted a white mother of pearl set just like Gene Krupa's, but I couldn't afford that. So I bought contact paper that they used to put on shells, and it was that sort of finish, and I put that on the drums, and it almost looked authentic.
Well, how did it come to pass that you hooked up with Stu Cliff and the Fogerty brothers, and I'm guessing in the early days there were some other players that kind of came and went before a band gelled?
Well, I was walking home from school, and I walked by the music room, and I heard Little Richard piano being played, and also Fats Domino. And I had all those records, and I knew every note. And there was a little skinny kid playing his back was to me, and rock and roll was forbidden. It wasn't allowed to be played in the school, or certainly in the music room. Mrs. Stark hated it, and that was sort of the rule. But he was breaking the rule and playing away. Finally, he took a little break, and I walked up to him, and I said, "Hey, that's Fats Domino and Little Richard, note for note." He says, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want to start a band?" He says, "Well, yes, but actually I play guitar. I'm looking for a piano player." I said, "Well, I know the guy. His name is Stu Cook. His dad's a big-time lawyer, so they have a big rumpus room with a beautiful piano that's in tune." And then this fellow I was talking to was John Fogerty. And he said, "Well, actually, I have to audition," and he gave me the names of the other two guys. I forget the names now, but what I did know at the time was they were kind of bad guys. These guys that were like 16 years old and in the 8th grade. So bad guys, but he said if he didn't audition them, that he would, they said they would beat the crap out of him. So the good news was when these fellows turned 16, then they bought a car, and then they were trolling for chicks and weren't interested in being in a band. So that sort of took the burden off of John's shoulders. We got Stu, and Stu was happy to be in the band, and we were an instrumental trio called the Blue Velvets.
Mm-hmm. You didn't mention Tom, so I guess he wasn't part of the band at that point?
He was not. He was in a band called Spiderweb and the Insects. He was 4 years older than we were. They were a really good band, really good players, but older guys, late teens, early 20s. And so Tom eventually came in, or actually brought us in with him to record, because his band were prototypical musicians. They didn't want to go to a recording session because they weren't getting paid. Tom was, at any rate, this is the one that really gets me. There weren't any chicks going to be there. No chicks were going to be there. So they said, "Oh, well, we'd rather work on our cars." Well, lucky us. Well, Tom had seen us rehearsing and had come to a few of our gigs and sang a few songs. He was the lead singer in this other band. And he asked if we were interested in backing him up in the studio, and we said, "Make a record?" He said, "Yeah." But it was we were 13, maybe 14 at the most at that time. We weren't very good, and but it was the beginning. Seeds were planted for something big in the future, but it took 10 years to get there.
Well, you mentioned before we started this interview, when we were talking, that you almost had a guy named Dave Wright in your band. Not Dave White, but Dave Wright?
Yeah, Dave Wright. He was about a year younger than the rest of us, and he was a handsome guy. He would have looked great on stage. He was a guitar player, and we were looking to kind of expand, and we thought he might be a good candidate, but he was always in fights, and we played some pretty rough joints back then, and we sort of came to the conclusion that if we had a fighter in the band, that we were all going to get our butts kicked. So we passed on him.
Well, you said you guys were like 13 and 14 and all that, and then you started playing some joints. How early was it that you could legally go out and play? Because I'm guessing it's mostly bars and things like that. It sounds like you were kind of underage when you first got started.
Well, we were underage, but a lot of the dates that we would play would be boys club dates. That was before they were boys and girls clubs. They were just boys clubs. But then if you would go into another city, like in Richmond or someplace like that, and play, and you were an out-of-towner, you had a good chance of getting your butt kicked. And but the gigs we liked were up at the University of California, sorority and fraternity gigs. $20 a man cash, that was big money, and they would even buy you beer. So that's when we were about 14, 15, maybe 16 as we developed. But most of the time we were playing school dances and things of that nature.
And I'm guessing you were pretty much a cover band at that point. I'm guessing John wasn't really yet.
No, and he wasn't singing either. We were an instrumental trio, and the bass at that time in the band was Stu's left hand on the piano, and it was interesting. But it was a beginning, and we played instrumentals, or we just played songs and didn't sing. So there were a lot of instrumentals on the radio back in those days, so it gave us a little leeway there.
So when was it that you kind of switched Stu off the piano and on to bass and becoming a foursome, and John taking the mic?
Well, that was a transition, certainly. As we started to progress in the studio, we realized that we did need a bass guitar, and it was a logical move for Stewie to switch over to the bass. And we were Tommy Fogerty and the Blue Velvets at that time, and we were recording, backing up Tom. And we eventually found our way to Fantasy Records in San Francisco, and we were recording with them, and Stewie had switched over to bass. And then as we kept moving and progressing, we had a hit record, a regional hit, of course, #1 in Sacramento, California, #1 in San Jose, California. And at that point, Stu and I were in college. Tom was working for PG&E, and John was working in the mailroom at Fantasy Records. And that boosted our pay, certainly having had a #1 hit in those markets. And then, Stewie had made the move to bass guitar, and John was starting to take over on the vocals. And we were a band called the Gollywogs at that point in time, a name we hated, but the manager that we had at that time gave us that name, and then gave us even more ridiculous uniforms to wear on stage. And so I used to have a stiff neck after every gig because I was playing with my head down. I was so embarrassed with the clothes I was wearing.
So when was it that John started writing the songs? Did they surprise you, the kinds of things he was coming up with, or?
Well, yes and no. Our first hit was not an original, of course. It was Susie Q by Dale Hawkins. And we played that in the clubs, and we stretched it out because we were playing 5 sets a night, 6 nights a week. So you want to make sure that you have enough songs to keep it as fresh as you can. So we would stretch things out, and of course the scene in San Francisco was starting to emerge where songs were becoming more jam-oriented and stretched out as well. So it segued nicely. But that was probably in around 1967, at that period of time.
At that point, you were with Fantasy Records, and so I guess the game was to get original songs. Did everybody try their hand at that? Did Tom try, or was it pretty much...
Tom and John were co-writing at that point, and then once we got out there and had our first success with the first album, Creedence Clearwater Revival, self-titled album, we still hadn't had an original hit. It was Bayou Country, and it was Proud Mary that broke the thing wide open. So at that point, John was starting to write, and he told Tom and everybody else, "Don't submit any material. I won't listen to it." And Tom used to be the lead singer, and he said, "And you won't be singing, so just play rhythm guitar and shut up." So that didn't sit well with Tom, who had brought us along the whole time on, with his dream, and so things started to unwind between the brothers at that early point.
I was always kind of wondering why, John, who's a California guy and all of that, is writing all these songs about the bayou. How did you get into all this Louisiana-themed material?
Well, we were fortunate living in the San Francisco Bay Area because there was a melting pot of music that really basically was a result of World War II. The Richmond Shipyard was a big facility that built ships for the war effort, but they needed a workforce, and so a lot of people came out from the South to be involved in that and to also see what it was like in California. And once they got out there, they loved it and stayed. So they brought their music and their culture with them. So we were able to hear the real stuff on radio stations and be able to actually go to and see some of these acts. We were able to see Jimmy Reed, the great Jimmy Reed, and Howlin' Wolf, and folks like that. In the earlier days, we had to sort of sneak in and be quiet and not be seen, but we were able to do that. And we loved that music, and that's where we made our focus. So it was pretty easy for us. It was just something we loved to do, and we refined it as much as we could, and had success with it.
Did you at that point feel like you were just backup players for John, or was Creedence Clearwater a full collaborative band at that point, do you think?
Well, it was a full band, and the collaboration was basically the way it would work is that we would jam 3-4 hours a day, just start from a riff, or I would start a drum beat. That's how we changed the beat around on Susie Q. Susie Q was a rockabilly song originally, and by making it a quarter note song on the drums, we kind of gave it a more shifted the groove, if you will, and used the same concept on Bayou, and so we would throw in what we thought or what we felt, basically, more than anything else on the jam. So we contributed that way. Didn't get any credit for it, but there was a lot of ideas that came from everyone, and in a 4-year period, we had 20 hits, and then John, as a solo artist, 40 years as a solo artist, has only had 2 top 10 hits. So to me, once you got rid of the guys that were holding him back, therein lies the difference. So we did contribute, but John, without question, was the main songwriter and one of the best songwriters in the history of modern music. So credit there where credit is due, but we didn't get the credit that we brought to the table.
Do you have any favorite tunes that you look back on and say, I did this and that made this, and anything notable that jumps out at you as a Cosmo song? Does that make any sense? Did I say that correctly?
Well, yeah, it's, I don't know if it's a Cosmo song, but I'll reiterate, changing up Susie Q to a quarter note song, gave it a very unique sound and feel. And actually, Born in the Bayou was going to be the A-side of the single, the first original song that we were going to throw out there. And it was, again, a quarter note song, meaning four beats to the bar on the bell of a cymbal, and I moved back and forth between the hi-hat and the bell of the cymbal on that song. And then an accented foot pattern. I won't get too technical on it, but it gave it a definite feel. And Bayou was, Born in the Bayou, which is my favorite Creedence song, had that same sort of concept. And but what happened is, in those days, they had radio song pickers, and they would sell, or you would subscribe, the radio stations would, to their tip sheets, and that's how stations were able to pick and choose, take pretty good odds on having a success with the songs that were being picked for whatever reason. These guys were pretty good at it. So radio flipped us. In other words, Proud Mary was the B-side, and Bayou was getting airplay, but it wasn't selling as well as we had hoped early on. And one of the song pickers said, "You're playing the wrong side. Flip it over," and played this song called Proud Mary. And then when that happened, it exploded, and we were on our way.
Yeah, to put it mildly. Did you enjoy the studio work as much as the live, or the other way around? I asked that because a couple of years ago, for the first time, on a Woodstock box set, I really got to see the band doing Keep on Shugling and all that kind of stuff, and I was going, holy Hannah, I never really realized just how tight a band these guys were on stage. Man.
Well, I love well, recording is more of the science of music. Playing concerts is more of the art of music. The live show, the show must go on. I mean, you're playing. Once you start, you can't stop and say, let's try that one again. You can do that in the studio, but you can't live. And then, of course, the main difference is you've got your fans out there. You have all that love and support. So it's what we do now. It's what Creedence Clearwater Revisited is. We are a traveling band. We tour only, and And it's just a joy to go travel around the world and see your fans and play for them, these songs, and there's nothing like it.
Well, before we switch over to Creedence Clearwater Revisited, I got one question I've been wondering about, I guess, for 40 years. Obviously, as the band dynamic is falling apart, and you end up doing that last album, why weren't you and Stu content to be John's backup band and ride the wave as long as it lasted, rather than have the dissension that, busted up CCR?
Well, we wanted that, and the Mardi Gras album that you're alluding to was not our idea. We had supported Tom through out the period that he was in the band. Of course, he left in early '71 because he wanted to be able to sing. We did 11 cover songs. Tom was a high tenor like John, but didn't have the rasp. He was more like Richie Valens, a sweet tenor. He could have done La Bamba, and we might have had a hit with it. And I think John was afraid that if Tom had a hit or success, it might threaten him some way. Otherwise, I just never did. We never did understand it. But by us supporting Tom, when Tom left, John said, "Okay, the next album, you do a third, and I'll do a third of the songs, and I won't sing in your songs because I have a unique voice." And so basically, it was John's way of dishing out punishment to us for supporting Tom. And then the other side of it was that he was also the manager, and we still have an entry-level record deal, one of the worst in the history of music. He was a brilliant talent that, had no education in business or experience, and thought because he was talented that he would be talented as a businessman, and it was just a catastrophe. And he lost more than anyone. He to this day doesn't own his songs. We still have an entry-level deal. We weren't in the Woodstock movie, when we should have been. Just all these bad decisions, signing the deals that he shouldn't have, leaving the good ones on the table. That's what we, and Stu has a degree in business, and we went to college together, and Stu said, "I have a degree in business and I'm not qualified." We needed a mentor and a manager, to help us with the problems between the brothers, to keep peace that way. That could have been and should have been worked out, to work out our contractual problems with the record company. That's what we were interested in. But it was an ultimatum that he gave us to on Mardi Gras to do a third of the material. Otherwise, we were going to break up the band right there. My only regret in all of this that we have before us and behind us is that I wish I would have had the fourth. And then he blamed us and told the press that we forced his hand, and we said we want to do this. Well, it was the other way around, and we took the fall for the breakup of the band. We should have seen it coming. But I wish that record would have never been done. I wish we would have had the foresight to see that we were being set up to take the fall for the band. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, it does. Well, Mardi Gras was the last of CCR, and of course John went on to do everything we all know about, Centerfield, et cetera, et cetera. And you guys didn't really kick back until, 1995? What was happening between 71 and 1995 for you and Stu?
Well, right after the band broke up, we took over the lease for Cosmo's factory, and at that point in time, live remote recording vehicles, trucks, with tape machines and things and a recording board were starting to emerge. So we had an idea that we wanted to become producers, be on the other side of the glass in the studio, pick local talent, record it, go to labels and make deals with them for to make these bands successful, and then we would use the remote vehicle for live recordings, and that would capitalize our operations. In other words, the money was pretty good if you had a recording truck. You'd have to bring one up from L.A. There were none in San Francisco. The problem with that, and it looked great on paper, but when we started building the truck, we got one of the best technicians in the business. But it took him a year and a half to build the darn truck. So by the time our truck was ready, there were like 10 of them in the marketplace. it was, that cuts your revenues in half or worse. And we did do a few projects and made some deals with Warner Brothers and Atlantic Records for a couple of different bands. And we played, both Stu and I played as the rhythm section on those projects, so we did get some playing in. But it was too little too late on the recording vehicle concept, which was kept us capitalized, and it was getting old. I wanted to move out of the city and move to the mountains, which I did do in 1980, and I'm still in the mountains today. I've been up here for 32 years in the Lake Tahoe area, and I wanted to get my kids out of the Bay Area and the big city and raise them in a beautiful natural environment. That's how I got the nickname of Cosmo. I'm into nature. I'm an amateur entomologist and got into habitat and environment and ecology and things like that way before it was a cool thing to do. So I moved up there, retired, and basically did I did 3 albums with Doug Clifford from the Sir Douglas Quintet and a few other projects, but I had a studio, and I fooled around and making little tapes and having fun doing that. But my main job is to raise our kids and also to give back. I got very active in my community, and it became a full-time job. A lot of some of the programs that I created were national successes and sort of models for other people to use, and so it was a cool time. With our kids coming up, I had 3 kids. We had 3 kids. I've been married 44 years to my high school sweetheart, and been together 50 years actually, and but married 44. We were teenagers when we met. So that's what I did, and then I got Stu to move up to the mountains in '95, and we were jamming with bass and drums. I said, I love you, but this is kind of boring. We need a band, and he concurred, and that's when we put together the Revisited project.
In the beginning, do I get the story right that you weren't really planning on doing anything big, that you just really wanted to play for private parties and the like, and it kind of started growing and snowballing?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We just wanted to play together in a band, and we hadn't played the songs in over 25 years, and nobody was playing them, including John Fogerty. He refused to play his own songs, so we said, well, geez, we can have some fun with this, and maybe 3 or 5 gigs a month, and get our feet wet and have some fun. But playing private parties, just quietly going about our business, and with the objective being we can go out and play music together and have a few beers and a few laughs. But our initial dates were what I call retail dates, public dates, and they went over just amazingly well. And we do privates, but we do maybe 10 or so a year, and we do 75 shows a year. That's the number of shows that we like to do, and that's what we do all over the world, basically. So. Everything in this project's been driven by the fans, basically, and it's been a great ride. This is we just completed our 18th year, and we will be starting up on the high seas in January. Looking forward to that, actually.
Who is in the band now? Obviously, you and Stu is the rhythm section, but you got 3 players that are in the front line now, right?
That's right. We have John Tristeo, who's been with us the entire 18 years as our lead singer, rhythm guitarist. He's an absolute professional and brilliant entertainer. Great guy. We love him, and he loves what he's doing. We have Steve Gunner, who's been with us the entire time, multi-instrumentalist. He plays acoustic guitar, keyboards, percussion, harmonica, and sings high harmony. Those are the overdub parts, basically, that are on the records. And then the latest addition, Kurt Griffey on lead guitar. He's an LA studio guy, and he's the kid in the band, and the young guy, he's 44. So I said, you could be my son. I have a 44-year-old son. So I said, that's kind of funny. you could actually be one of my boys.
What's going on with the Rock Legends Cruise? That's in January, and it's going to be bands like Black Oak, Arkansas, Blue Oyster Cult,
Foreigner, Paul Rogers, 38 Special, on and on and on. There's 25 bands, and it's a 4-day cruise, so there will be nonstop music. It's going to be quite amazing, actually, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And if you want to find out more about the Rock Legends Cruise, folks, if you go to the Dave White Presents webpage, if you're not already there, and go to the Persons of Interest page, I guess we'll have the Rock Cruise there kind of twice, because with Jim Dandy, when we talked about on our last show, he was going to be on the cruise. We got a link for him there. So we want you to know about that for sure. And we'll also have a link to Creedence Clearwater Revisited, so you can see about all the many other gigs. You do have some live recordings out there folks can pick up, right?
Yeah, we do. We have an album called Recollection. It's a platinum album, and another fan-driven project, and it's a double CD set, and it's a live recording of one of our shows up in Canada.
And amongst the songs that you've been recording, and since it's Christmas time, we've probably got to go out with this one, is a version of the old Chuck Berry song, Run, Rudolph, Run. How did that come about?
Well, it's on a Christmas album, actually, made up of many artists, and it's for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, so it's a really good cause, and it's one of our favorite songs, and we were asked if we could or wanted to be on the record, and we said we did, but we were on a tour at the time, and we said, when do you need it? He said, next week. There's no way we can get into a studio, but we really wanted to be part of it. It's a great cause, and there's some great artists on the record, and so we got a copy of the song, played it for the band, and at sound checks we got it up, rehearsed it a little bit, and we recorded it live to 2-track. So that's not a multi-track recording. It's live, just like on stage without all the fancy gear, and it turned out great. And that's the way they made records back in the old days. You couldn't stop and go back and repair things. It's live. Here you go. And we did it, got it on the third take. It was kind of a blast, and going back to the old way of making records.
So I guess we'll take this interview to the end of the road. Say thanks to Doug Cosmo Clifford.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. Don't forget that all past shows are archived on the Artist First Radio Network. And join us next week for another exciting episode